Hello, Ben here with Stu on the Lake. Hey, you asked for it. Here's the dangerous, don't build this for your kid. If you do build it, take the nail out of it. But he's got a nail in his mouth. That little thumb piece on there is where you'd stick your thumb to open that up. I can't do that because this is still wet with epoxy. I was playing around with it. I just wanted to get the filming done. You can see me moving it around a little bit in the final position. But this, it used to be a snake. I turned it into a dragon. It's on a slider box, real simple. You pull it open, has a string on him attached to the bottom of the slider, and poof, he comes out and he bites you right in the nail. So, real quick, painless build. I took a standard piece of scrap pine. I cut it in half. I made two sizes, and I'm going along. I don't have a pattern for this, because I don't have one of these guys sitting around that I made many years ago. So this one would kind of be the pattern, and you wouldn't have to go through some of the trial and error that I did. So I just put a nail in there as a pivot point on one piece of the box before I even built the box. And I'm going to check out that he comes up out of there. This is a piece of basswood. It's probably an inch thick. And poof. Dragon head shape. As always, you want to put some center lines in there. Yeah, this was fun. Like I said, if I remember, I'll put on the title. Do not make this. Be kind of like Elon Musk and his 20,000 flamethrowers that he built. So it needs a pivot point. And you'll notice I drilled it crooked. I end up drilling a second hole later on that's a little bit straighter. But the initial, and this is trial and error sort of stuff. So the front of the box will be to the right. We want to pull a slider lid through the middle that you saw in there, and we want this guy to come up. So we need to carve it into a dragon head. The bottom part doesn't need to be carved into a dragon head. And some of the stuff I did off camera towards the bottom there on the pivot, I did take a little bit of that out. Took a little bit out of his neck. No pattern for this guy. He's just a fat head dragon. I left it a little bit fatter. I'm drawing the center lines in there. Try to make him a little bit symmetrical. There's a nostril. And then the mouth line going down along the bottom there. So that's a cuts-all. It's not an extreme. It's the one down from that. And I'm putting in two nose nostrils. And then just simple relief work around for the nose and the mouth. Like I said, there's no pattern for this guy. I had a couple of red glass eyes, and I'll put those in here shortly. But there's his nose. A little bit of a mouth. This when I did this guy, I did him 4 or 5 days ago. I had been gone for about 3 weeks, and in the couple of days that I did have at home, I was busy doing commission carving stuff. If you've been over to the watercolor channel, I haven't had a lot of time to play around with that. I did actually film 2 paintings or lessons about 3 weeks ago. But what I noticed is I've been using an old phone to do the filming on it with just a SD card in the phone. Phone's not hooked up to anything anymore, just using the camera aspect of it. And it worked fine for 3 or 4 videos, and then the last 2 that I shot ended up with, they were corrupted, and I wasn't able to save them. So I need to figure out what's going on with that, or change that camera out. Maybe go with the Canon 70D and do some stuff. So here's the eye socket. There's already one on the other side. This is a quick down and dirty carve. I wasn't trying to make him fancy. There's some tolerances in the box that are a little bit sloppy. But the concept is to give you an idea what's going on. So you've seen me use the quick wood before. And I just got enough to put in there, press into the eye socket. It's a two-part epoxy, and it is called Quickwood. It's available everywhere now. It didn't used to be 15, 20 years ago. You used to have to specially order it. So here's a Tohican glass eye, a red one. There's my standard knife that I've used for years for setting eyes. You can see it's still got a little bit of fire damage on there. And I do need to reset the blade in there. Probably remake that handle one of these days when I get around to it. These eyes were salvaged out of the end of a wand that ended up breaking off. Had a dragon's eye in the wand and it broke at the weakest link, which would be where it starts to go down into the wand. So you've seen me set glass eyes before. If you haven't, go back through many of the videos. And then I went back, and now here's a saber, long taper. And it's green, so it's one of the coarser ones. And I'm just putting ridges down along the front of it around his nose, and then I'm going to come down to the side, and just kind of my idea what a dragon would look like. And I would have probably made him his nose, snout a lot thinner, but I was kind of liking this fat look on this guy, and since he is basically hidden in a box, there was really no reason to get too fancy on him. And the concept was to show you this box. I mentioned when I made the exploding box that that's one of the toys that they used to make in the old days. And they would put a nail, or they'd take a tin can and cut out a forked snake's tongue, and these were done with snakes at that time. And then you put your thumb on the top of the box, as you saw, and you pull it open, and you tell your friend or whatever, pull fast, really fast. And the dragon comes out, of course, and taps him on the top of the thumb or the finger that you're using to pull that open, and 9 times out of 10, I guess, would draw blood. So I don't know if you'd be a good friend after that. I showed you how to put the beginning part, or in here I'll show you sticking the nail in there. It's pretty straightforward. Then I went ahead and I didn't glue the nail in. I took the nail out. There's no intent to. There's no reason to torture people. You can get away nowadays with just telling them, hey, imagine if that had a nail in there, how cool that would be. So there's a dragon. I am leaving his face a little fat. There's his ridges. Just like ruffles have ridges, dragons have ridges, I suppose. And this was a really quick carve. There's probably 10 or 15 minutes in the dragon head itself. Short of setting those eyes. And again, always drawing center lines, and then here's where I'm going to throw some scales in on the side. I'm not going to carve very far down on that thing because it needs contoured around to slide out, and you do a few adjustments as it comes over the lid portion of it. I'm going to put some ears on there, or ears on the head. And this piece that I've got sitting in my hand, I just took that and cut it in half. I won't show you the carve on that. I put a groove behind his head there, and poof, there's an ear. Not going to get too fancy on that either. Off camera, I'll put a couple of grooves in the ears and clean it up a tad. Just enough to give it the idea of a dragon. I'm not going to put any horns or any of that sort of thing on there. And I'm a bigger dragon, I probably would put horns running down his snout and down his head. That's 5-minute epoxy that I'm using in the background there. All right, so time to put the box together. You can see if you look to the right-hand side there, about halfway down, there's a little white hole shadow. That's where I had a nail. The nail was a pivot point. When I took this out, I used probably a 1/4-inch piece when I start putting it together. Now I'm testing out. I glued the sides on the box. I haven't cut the top down. There. Now I've cut it down. You can see that that's the groove that the slider is going to follow. You can see my nail is a pivot point right there. I will replace that with a little steel rod that goes all the way through. But here's the groove for the top. You can see the front of the box there that I cut where the top will slide out, because it's just going to be a sliding lid. And if you look real careful, there's a little bitty groove right in the middle of the top, right under my thumb there. And that's where the string is going to come out. I've already put the groove in, and I'm just trying to make this nice and smooth. You can spend a little more time if you want and get the slider on that box, the lid, to do great things. So here's the end piece. We want the slider lid to go into the end. And when I'm all done, I'll go ahead and address that box down just a little bit on the top. So here's the lid, or at least one side of the lid. Since I haven't glued the box up, you can see I haven't done the left side, because I'm not exactly sure how wide that is since this is a prototype. And I just wanted to make sure that it was doing what I wanted it to do. It is. It's sliding. It's doing all kinds of good stuff. And you can see there I've got the dragon in backwards, but I was just testing out spacers, because since he has ears on him, he gets a little complicated, and he tries to hang up in the box. You'd want to design him a little smoother than that. I rubbed it down there. Now he's facing the right direction. I've got two spacers. You can see I've got the rod in there, a spacer on the left and the right hand side, to keep him in the center so he pops out of there like he should, and he does. You can see where he's going to end up when he comes out. There's the lid, ready to go, and you can see I haven't glued that face on. I want to make sure it worked right. Now I've glued the face on. I've got a waxed string sitting in a strong string nylon in my lap there. I'm poking a little hole in his neck, and then I'll put some epoxy on that, stick the string in there, and I put a little peg in the hole. So now we need to figure out, the string is through the notch underneath the lid there, and I'm adjusting and playing. I'm letting the string slide, and there's a point where I want to attach that string to the box, and just as it starts to go out, so just as it starts to pull and clears the edge of the box, that's where the string needs to go in. So I will cut the string there, peg it underneath. So now the spring is set up, or the string is set up in there, and now I'm just cleaning stuff up, and I'm trying to figure out where I want to put that thumb piece. I just carved a real quick thumb piece on there, and you can see it's still wet. So here's the end of the character. The thumb piece is still floating around, and I haven't exactly got it set where I want. I want to see where the dragon strikes. Poof, right in there. I kind of like there, and the thumb piece should be back just a tad. So I'll slide that back, let the epoxy dry, slide it back right in there, and voila, there you go. There's they called it a snake box in the old days. We turned it into a dragon, and great fun. You can make it tight tolerance. Hey, thanks a lot. This has been Ben with Stew on the Lake. Hope you enjoyed that. Click like, always leave a comment, and if you haven't, subscribe. Thanks a lot.